Hey everybody, we are finally at the final class. It was finally Warrior's turn to get their class reveal, and they have two archetypes, but I have to be honest with you, there are two cards still missing from the reveals that are going to be revealed at BlizzCon, I believe. So we're only seeing 8 of the 10 cards, and unfortunately, Warrior is one of the classes with Excavate, and the two cards that are missing are Excavate-related cards, I think, because they don't have, unlike all the other excavation classes, a card yet revealed that says, if you've excavated twice, do this. Nor have they shown off the treasure, nor have they shown off their legendary for the excavation package. So, we can look at one side of the package pretty well, but we can't really look at the excavate side fully yet. Anyway, what is their other package? Well, their other package is Taunt Warrior. How exciting! Alright, you might have to tell them I'm a little bit underwhelmed by this. Warrior does have a lot of taunt cards, they have a lot of taunt support, but an entire archetype based around taunt hasn't really worked in the past, unless you had like some insane card, and I don't think they have it yet. Anyway, let's get to the actual cards. The Unlucky Powderman, a 2-mana 2/2 undead, taunt, death rattle. Give taunt minions in your hand and deck +1/+1. Okay, it's a slightly understated 2-drop, but its effect is pretty big, right? Its effect is Mistcaller. Mistcaller was a legendary, it was a great legendary, and it's a 2-mana Mistcaller, right? Wrong. It's not exactly a 2-mana Mistcaller, because Mistcaller was all minions. Typically your taunt minions, because this only hits taunt minions, are statted in such a way that they have low attack and high defense. But you can't really win the game with just like high defense. It's nice to protect your face and set up some sort of other combo. So maybe that's where it sees some play, but right now the big win condition for Warrior is Odyn, right? People complained before Odyn was released that Control Warrior doesn't have a win condition. Does this help for Odyn? No. So I just don't see this card being particularly great. As I said, there is a decent amount of taunt support. So, for example, something like Last Stand, where you draw a taunt minion, mana first 7, double its stats. If you give a minion +1/+1 into your deck, it will get that +1/+1 doubled, i.e. it'll be a +2/+2. So Last Stand will probably go into that deck. There's also then some pretty good taunt minions. Azerite Chain Gang, I think, would probably be one of the best hits of this, right? You play your Unlucky Powderman, he dies, he gives +1/+1 to, minions in your hand and deck. You draw the Azerite Chain Gang on 4, right? You play it, and that is, what? 3/3/4, so it's like 9/12 of stats with taunt. That is pretty disgusting. It's a pretty big tempo swing. Zeliax obviously benefits from these buffs. It gives you the lifesteal. He also has Divine Shield and Rush. Great removal, classic card. Flesh Shaper as well. If you get +1/+1 on Flesh Shaper and you can have 5 armor when you play the Flesh Shaper, you get 2 of those bad boys, so you're basically duplicating the effect from Unlucky Powderman. And Morsworn Bailiff, I've also just added on here. It's another taunt minion, but a lot of the taunt package has effects, or at least of the old packages. They have effects where it needs you to have a certain threshold of armor, so you're probably going to have to run an armor gaining card in your deck as well, but Morsworn Bailiff, if you can get +1/+1 and get its effect off, hell, that is 9/9 for 5 mana, that's pretty good. The downside for Unlucky Powderman is he could be very unlucky and get silenced, because it is a death rattle. So he's going to be awkward to enable yourself. He can be played around, so we'll see. Other taunt minions, Detonation Juggernaut, 5 mana 3/6 mech. Taunt Battlecry, give your taunt minions in your hand +2/+2. Okay, more hand buff for Warrior. Another thing that Warrior has tried and failed to implement in the past. In fact, so much so that it's still in standard. Armageddillo, 6 mana 4/8 beast, taunt at the end of your turn, give all taunt minions in your hand +2/+2. See 0 play. So I think Detonation Juggernaut will see 0 play. Now maybe it is just, Armageddillo was only a legendary and a one-off. Maybe the Detonation Juggernaut changes the balance, that there's enough of these hand buff taunt minions in your hand cards that maybe the package can work, but I'm still not entirely convinced. And as, again, an example, 3/6/4/8, not the most aggressive of stat lines, right? Also, again, another minion you might want to buff with these two cards is something like Backstage Bouncer, where you could turn it into a 6/7. then ideally transform a friendly minion that's either taking a lot of damage or is just poor statted, and you get a bigger buff for your buck, right? My concern, though, is Blood Tap, which is in standard right now with double Blood Rune, sees basically zero play. Sometimes you use it on the Discovery. Don't Feed the Animals, which was back in Madness at the Dark Moon Fair, I believe, saw very little play as well, and that was for a class that runs historically beasts, and beasts are historically pretty aggressive, so I'm not convinced this taunt package is going to work. The final taunt minion they revealed was the 6-mana 2/7 beast, Taunt. Battlecry, deal damage to all enemy minions equal to this minion's attack. Okay, pretty solid. Like, if you can hit this with some buffs, that is. 6-mana 2/7's pretty understated, to say the least. It comes with a Consecration-like effect on it. But if you can hand buff this, it gets more close to something like maybe an Inquisitive Creation, which sees a lot of play in Mage. Very good for clearing boards and keeping yourself alive while, you set something up, right? Set something up. Also in the past, Undying Disciple had a very similar effect on Priest, and this card saw a lot of play in Priest. Unfortunately, the reason that Undying Disciple saw a lot of play in Priest was that was back when Priest could resurrect 18 million minions per game, and it was just an unbreakable wall, right? You'd give this Reborn, resurrect it, your opponent minions would clear it, they would all die clearing it, it would come back as a 3/1, you'd play more minions, it would clear them again, you get the gist of it. It is nice that Blastoise's effect is Battlecry, though. It's a fast effect, so you're guaranteed to get the value. You're not necessarily going to get silenced or anything like that. So it is a decent payoff, I will give it that. And if this Taunt Warrior package works, I think it's going to be a tempo deck. In fact, it will definitely be a tempo deck, where you're just playing like minion, 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 minion. I'm just trying to overwhelm your opponent with stats. If you're in a matchup where you're both trying to play tempo, this Blast Tortoise is going to be a huge shift in your favour for tempo. If you've given this at the very least like +2/+2, you clear the board probably at 4 damage to all minions, while it has 4/9 of stats. That is potentially, backbreaking. And the other thing these cards have in common, and why I think it's going to be in a tempo package, Blast Tortoise is a beast. Detonation Juggernaut is a mech. Unlucky Powderman is undead. So, Menagerie Warrior was something that was, they've tried to make work, it hasn't exactly worked. You do see it occasionally, somewhere around tier 4 type deck. Maybe Menagerie Warrior starts putting all these taunts in their deck instead and start hand buffing the taunts as well. And maybe the combination of the Menageries and the buffs to all the taunt minions, maybe it just sings together and you do get these big tempo swing turns where you play, I don't even know, like a 7/12, which duplicates itself when you have 5 armor. Maybe that's good enough. I don't think it's going to be, though. What might be good enough, though, and this is probably the most interesting card and potentially the most exciting card for the taunt package, Battle Pickaxe, a 3-mana 4/1 weapon. After you play a taunt minion, gain +1 durability. It's the never-ending weapon, potentially. Now, we have seen this in the past, in Eaglehorn Bow, which was played a lot in Face Hunter. And this is like, your classic weapon, right? You'd play some secrets in your Face Hunter deck. Your opponent would break the secrets, it would give another durability to the bow, and you would just keep sending this bow to the face. Ideally getting, maybe another +2 durability. And it was so hard to play around because Hunter had things like every occasion, like if you attacked a minion, Freezing Trap. They had like Dart Trap and stuff on, like, was it Hero Powers? I can't remember all of them now. Ice Trap on spells. It was really obnoxious to play against. Battle Pickaxe is more aggressively statted and probably easy to activate because you don't rely on your opponent causing your secret to proc. You play the taunt minion, so you can throw this Battle Pickaxe into the board, play a taunt with it like a cheap taunt, and hey, you've got a 3-mana 4/2 weapon. So, maybe it's Face Warrior. Who knows? Maybe you're going to run a bunch of cheap taunt minions, vomit them onto the board, and the Battle Pickaxe just chunks your opponent's face down. Unfortunately, though, again, I was like looking through the taunt minions, and I was thinking, oh, you might want to play, a bunch of weapons and stuff until I saw this Battle Pickaxe. It's sadly very anti-synergistic with Abyssal Basis, which would have been a nice minion to buff, which gives you lifesteal, and you could discount it to like a 0 cost for a big, cheap turn. Maybe it still sees play in the deck. Maybe you run other weapons with the Battle Pickaxe, but I suspect you won't run Abyssal Basis anymore. The first legendary, though, and this kind of goes somewhere, who knows? 8 mana 7/7, Boom Boss Fogron. Battlecry, shuffle 3 TNTs into your deck. When they're drawn, blow up a card in the enemy hand, deck, and battlefield. And this is just a screen grab of the TNT, which shows that it casts when it's drawn and it destroys a card in your opponent's hand, deck, and battlefield as promised. Interesting card. Very interesting card. It goes into your deck as well, not your opponent's deck. So it's hard to play around. And Patchwork, when, Death Knight was a thing, is a very similar effect to Patchwork. Patchwork was minions, though, not just cards. And Patchwork saw a lot of play. In fact, it saw so much play, people would bounce it, they would bran it. Because losing 2 cards from your hand, 2 minions on your board, 2 cards from your deck was very, very obnoxious. Especially if you were running a control deck yourself and you plan to go to the late game. Making your opponent's deck thinner means that they're going to fatigue first and therefore they're going to take more damage and you're more likely to win. There's also cards that, can enable this. We have the Sharp-Eyed Seeker in neutral. Do you remember this card? If the card that was in your deck that didn't start there, draw it. So you play your Boom Boss Fogron. Maybe you crank it up to 11 so you have 11 mana, and instead you can play the Sharp-Eyed Seeker immediately, but you don't have to. You could do it on a later turn. You play your Seeker. You get a TNT, it destroys a card in your opponent's hand, deck, and battlefield. Also interesting, it says card. I don't know if this works on like locations and stuff. Question mark. Again, a dev would have to say this. Or a secret. Is that counted as a card on the battlefield? I don't know, but I assume it means it's only going to hit minions, right? If not, maybe this could destroy, locations, secrets, minions. That'd be a really cool thing to have. It's also going to remove, cards from the hand as well in the deck, and this is pretty important for decks that are combo decks, right? This is a great combo answer. Anything that causes hand or deck disruption, combo decks, they hate it. So, if it's a big combo meta, and it's a pretty big combo meta right now with Sith Mage out there and Odyn Warrior, if you can hit Odyn or Sith with Boom Boss, you're laughing. Other things that might help you draw the TNT, you could put Sir Finley in there and just shuffle your hand back into your deck. Gaslight Gatekeeper, you shuffle your hand into your deck and draw that many cards, you might draw into the TNTs. And then Steam Guardian, that looks for spells. If you run a very low spell deck, you're more likely to draw these TNTs with the Steam Guardian. Interesting. Unfortunately, the current tier 1 deck for Warrior is Odyn Warrior. And Odyn Warrior has a very, finite theme, right? You're a control warrior deck, where your win condition is you play Odyn, you gain a bunch of armor, and you smork your opponent's face down with the armor. Can a Boom Boss Thogran fit into this deck? I'm not certain. I think it's going to be too slow to get into that deck. Why do I think that? Well, General Vizax came out with the mini set, and you'd think this would fit reasonably well in the Odyn Warrior deck, right? It's a minion that basically can't be killed when you gain tons of armor, and this deck gains tons of armor. Unfortunately, they can't fit General Vizax in it. There was just no room for it. You'd prefer to give you cards that either kill your opponent's minions or give you armor more, so Vizax didn't fit into that deck. However, maybe Boom Boss Thogran is something that you might tech into your ETC if you're running ETC. And if you get into a mirror matchup of control, maybe you'd pick up a Boom Boss Thogran from your ETC, play that bad boy, and you'll just wait over time to get the 3 TNTs. Otherwise, I think you have to build your deck kind of around this card, in which case I don't think you're going to have room for Odyn in the deck. And then you're going back to the point where you're playing Control Warrior without Odyn, which historically wasn't good before Odyn. It was pretty bad, in fact, so I don't know, maybe you can live forever somehow. Maybe you start running Renathal Control Warrior decks and you try and outlast everyone, but I think Priest will do that better than you still, even with the destruction, so sadly, it's just a little bit too slow. Unlike the Demon Hunter card, I was a bit more optimistic about Kurtrus, because that's on a battle cry, so it just goes off quickly, and it's targeting minions, and a lot of the combo pieces right now are minions. This is cards, it's not minions, so you might just hit some guff, honestly. But anyway, I really like the idea of the card. I think it's going to be interesting. I'm certain some people are going to run Boom Boss decks where they just fill their deck with TNT by bouncing Boom Boss back like 18 times. You're going to lose a lot of tempo for it and lose the game probably, but, you know, you might get some nice TikToks. Now we go to some of the spells. We have Misfire, 2-mana spell, deal 3, 2, and 1 damage to a random minion. Quick draw, choose the targets. I love the flavor of this card again. It's like a countdown on a, you know, the dynamite is shown in the picture, the poor ogre getting his horn blown off, or nearly clean off. Yeah, it's 2 mana for 6 damage, split in potentially the direction you want it to if you quick draw it. We have seen a card like this before, and it's still in standard. It's Shell Shot in Hunter, which was 3 mana. You did 3 damage to a minion, and you repeated it with 1 less damage. Okay, you could spell damage increase Shell Shot to make it 4-3-2-1, whereas for Misfire it would be 4-3-2. It's still, I think, a pretty close comparison, though. Shell Shot doesn't see much play. Admittedly, it's more of a control-orientated card. Typically, Hunters now, they run the star power instead. It's more efficient. Warrior, it's a cheaper card. They do like control cards, so you might say, like, it's pretty good. And I think it is pretty good. Unfortunately for Misfire, I don't think it's going to be as good as Bellowing Flames, which is already in there. In part because Bellowing Flames is used for Ignis, and I think you will want Ignis still in your Odyn Warrior deck. And also, I think you'll be running Sanitize, and you're probably going to be running Brawl anyway, so Warrior isn't with that access to control options, and I don't think Misfire is the best of those, so I think you'll see 0 play. And now we get to the 2 excavation cards, which, as I said, it's impossible to really fully evaluate these until you see the treasure for Warrior, and we haven't seen it yet. 3 mana Blast Charge, destroy damage enemy minion, excavate a treasure. Execute is in standard right now. It sees basically 0 play, destroy damage enemy minion, and that's despite the fact that Enrage Warrior is actually, I think it's sitting in like tier 1 right now. The tiers are a bit all over the place right now, but at least on ladder it's performing very well, the Enrage Warrior. Enrage Warrior does, you know, damage to enemy minions as well as like a slight side effect. They don't run Execute, I believe, but I'm not that familiar with that deck. Therefore, Blast Charge, I think we'll see 0 play. Also, it's a bad card. Just flat out not good. If you say the destroyed damage enemy minion is 1 mana, which is what Execute is, which sees no play anyway, then it's 2 mana Excavate a Treasure, which is like 2 mana draw a card. Terrible value. So, unless the treasure is insane for Warrior, Blast Charge will be not played. Similarly, Reinforced Plating, 3 mana gain 6 armor, Excavate a Treasure. Very similar to Shield Block, which is gain 5 armor, draw a card. But for 1 more mana, you get 1 armor. Wow, not a good deal. Some people said you were going to run this maybe in Odyn Warrior, because Odyn Warrior likes the armor gainers. I don't think you have room to run this Reinforced Plating in that deck. I think they'll keep the Shield Block, they'll keep the Heavy Plate, because Heavy Plate's got tradable on it, so even though Reinforced Plating gives you like a card as well, and maybe you would exchange a card for 2 armor. The tradable side of it, you won't, because you have to get Odyn. It's so nice to be able to trade these heavy plates when you're fishing for Odyn. I just don't think it's going to see any play, but maybe, just maybe, they can squeeze in 1 more armor gainer. Maybe you remove, like, a Brawl or something. Maybe you've got enough board clears, and you put a Reinforced Plating in as maybe, like, a one-off. Again, just for 3 mana, gain 6 attack, get a card. Who knows? Anyway, as I said, we're waiting for 2 more cards from Warrior. We need the legendary Excavator, we need to see what the treasure is, and we need to see what the reward is for excavating twice, but they're going to have to be pretty goddamn insane for you to justify running them. And also right now, I'm not entirely certain until we see these cards whether or not this excavation package will fit with the taunt package. I think if anything's going to come from what we've seen so far, though, it'll be some sort of support for Menagerie Warrior where you'll fit a taunt package on top of it, but I don't think it's going to be particularly good. I think it's probably going to be a tier 4 deck, maybe tier 3. Anyway, that's going to do it for this reveal. There's, I think, 4 or 5 cards now going to be revealed at BlizzCon. We still have to wait on the Mage Legendary. We're missing a Rogue Legendary, and I think we're missing a neutral as well, maybe. I know Reno is going to be one of the reveals. We've not seen Reno yet. I don't know if he's the mage or a neutral legendary, so things may all change if one of these cards, and, you know, the community's generally been pretty down on the set so far. Maybe they just behind the scenes are like, you know, scribbling out some of the mana costs and it'll make all the excavation packages much better, but I'm not convinced by a lot of them. Anyway, thanks for watching, and as the BlizzCon reveals come out, maybe I'll do some short videos for just each of those cards. We'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.